about it. Learning about her now and what she did. I mean, it really boils back, and I don't want to spoil a lot of this and we'll get into the Nostradamus piece here. But if you got a Norma Jean story, or maybe your grandparents, or maybe you have something that you want to contribute to that show, let us know. You can email us at mario@onairmario.com, or you can send us a text. Say, hey, I have a story. 775-990-5151. Mark, interesting gal. I'm very intrigued by her. She may be the first one to be a part of, I mean, she might be the original person that men took advantage of, that during that time period where in Hollywood they took advantage of people. And now, obviously, now that we're in 2022, a lot of that doesn't, people are paying the price, the ultimate price for that. So,
Well, and a lot of the discussions about, relationship with, Kennedy and
right.
the connection she had, with Washington, D.C. And, over the years, we've heard about the so-called backdoor entrance, into the White House to catch up with the president or the first lady or whatever. And was Marilyn Monroe the first one to be allowed to go through that so-called back door? And here it is all these years later, and because of social media and because people that were there at the time, they're now able to share these stories because they're so much older, and they're like, well, maybe I'll be dead in a year or two, and all these secrets I've kept. It's time to just say I was there. Here's what I know. I'm done, and I go away. And we're seeing this in a lot of different subjects too, Mario. If you think about it.
And I think the pandemic really is pulling a lot of this stuff out. More people having sightings, and again, we do have a couple reports that have come in to us via text. They want to stay anonymous, but if you have sightings of Sasquatch, which we are getting, Mark, we're getting people reporting to us that they are having encounters around the Mount St. Helens, the Ape Cave area. We're getting people reporting sightings and nestings over in that area. And there was a gentleman who said he was in, the Olympic Mountains, and he thought he saw something that resembled, and didn't have time to grab his phone to take a picture.
Yeah, and it's the one I sent to you here, just as close as December 27th, I believe, was the date, as much of the Northwest was getting, pounded with the ice and the snow. And we were starting to see all these flights that were being canceled because the weather was just too much here, not just in the Northwest region, but around the country. There was one gentleman who went on record and said, I can't risk missing a flight from Portland to Seattle. And so he got a car and was driving in the middle of the night, and was around this in Chehalis, Centralia area, just south of Olympia, and noticed something in the storm, standing up and walking on the road in front of him. He thought maybe somebody from an abandoned vehicle, what have you. And as he got closer, and even though it was snowing pretty heavily, the headlamps flashing on what he said was definitely a creature moving from right to left, and it walked over the Jersey barrier. He said it did not climb over, it walked one giant step. He noticed there was a semi truck and a couple of cars going southbound on Interstate 5 in that same forested area. And he's still trying to figure out if he can find those drivers to confirm he knows what he saw, but these vehicles did slow down for something. And did they ever call in and report it? And again, that's December 27th. That's the most recent that I've heard of
That,
sighting here in the state.
that is so amazing that we're getting these kinds of reports. And I know I talked to our friends over at Como TV. I talked to the weekend anchor. Why can't I think of his name right off the top of my
Steve
head?
McCarran. Steve McCarran.
Yeah, Steve McCarran. And I asked him, I said, hey, did you guys get a phone number for those people that called in? No, we just kind of blew them off. It's like, no,
Yeah,
no.
and I shared with him what I had heard about this Interstate 5 near Centralia sighting that was reported. And he said, no, we had two calls, and he didn't know if it was from the same family because they were separated in time. But he said it was something about Pacific Highway. And Steve, not being from this area, I was like, well, Pacific Highway South, Pacific Highway. Are we talking more of the coast? He goes, I don't know. And
And
this is how some of these stories come about, Mario, and everybody listening. You know, the taking the notes. Where were you? What time of day? Was there weather involved? Were you by yourself? Was it daytime, nighttime, in the middle of the night? Nearby town, nearby exit, something to give us an idea of where it was?
yeah, I mean, It'd be helpful if someone
Yeah.
could, and especially, you know how TV is though. They can't, you don't want to give away too much of that going on. You don't want to freak people out. If you don't, or maybe they don't think it's credible enough. Maybe they don't see that. They're like, oh no, the story's not, it's not viable. Maybe it's not, and that's okay. But we could use that. I mean, those were, good stories that I was like, dang, that would have been awesome for that to come in, and we could have used that. But
Well, and Mario, I think about it, today, and again with the pandemic, a lot of us saw so many fewer drivers on many highways around the country. More people were working at home. So, as you check with law enforcement, whether most cities or highway patrol, they'll tell you that all of a sudden, with less traffic, we started to see the high speed drivers on many of the roadways. And now that many people are back on the roadways, we're seeing those high speed drivers still trying to get away with it. And how many times, it could be every day, and I can relate to this, you have a vehicle that passes you at a very high speed, and you're like, boy, I should call it in. This could cause an accident. And you see them do it again the next day and
right.
maybe a week. And you think, yeah, I'll call it in, but are they ever going to catch him? Do I want to go on record? Will they even believe me? And it's almost like when you see something like a Bigfoot. If I call it in, will they believe me? Do I want to go on record? And again, I go back to, as I've always said, nobody ever plans to see a Bigfoot. And when you do see it, you're never ready to take a picture or take a video. You do your best. The question's always been, how come all the pictures are always blurry? It's always far away. Uh, I leave it at that. So how do you prepare? You'll never be prepared.
No, you're not. You're not. You just it's either gonna happen. You're like, whoa, like the guy. He's like, I didn't have time to get my camera out,
Yeah.
and then there it was. He's like, dang, I missed my opportunity to have maybe his $1 million picture. Who knows?
Mhm.
As we transition from Bigfoot stories and encounters, if you have one, please send us a call or text us 775-990-5151. You can tell us your story. You can leave a message, 90 seconds. If you want us to call you back, we'd love to have you on the air with us. Mark, let's get into the 9 chilling Nostradamus 2022 predictions. Starting at number 9. What do we know about number 9, which is do you want to read that one or should I?
Let's do this real quick. The reason, Mario, that I thought it'd be kind of fun, and again, it's great to be here with everybody who's listening right now. Nostradamus has always interested me, and this goes back to the early 80s. And it's a movie that I've found bits and pieces still available, but I've yet to find the full movie. It's a movie that was called The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, and it was narrated by Orson Welles. And it was on cable TV in the early 80s. I came across it one night totally by accident, not knowing who this Nostradamus was and these predictions. But I thought, here's Orson Welles with that magnificent narrative voice. I'll sit and watch this and see what it's all about. And I was seeing clips about somebody making predictions and things that possibly that can come true in the future. And then I saw that, Orson Welles was explaining that Michel de Notre Dame was his real name. He was a French doctor and astrologer, and he contributed his knowledge during the plague, famous for prophecies in which he anticipated the future of humanity until the end of the world, which I made a note. It stated that the end of the world would come in the year of 3797. Okay, it's 2012. Do the math. You won't even be here. But
Right.
then I started watching the program and some of the predictions that he had in there. One was, and they used to, the little predictions or the so-called notes that he wrote down. These are things that just came to his mind when he was a young man. He didn't know what they meant, but something said, write them down, these prophecies, and maybe one day you'll figure out what it is. And they called them quatrains. And they claim the most famous prophecy, the quatrain, was one he wrote called "The young lion will overcome the older one on the field of battle in a single battle. He will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, 2 wounds, made one, then he dies a cruel death." Okay, in 1559, Nostradamus predicted the death, they're saying, of Henry II. The former was struck in the eye during a duel against Gabriel de Montgomery, aka the young lion. And apparently at that point, people figured, okay, how did he see that vision? How was he able to know that? And as he goes on through these quatrains, there's so many things. And real quick, before we go through the top 9 for 2022 quatrains and predictions of Nostradamus, what got my attention is on the day of 9/11. I remembered back to that movie narrated by Orson Welles, The Man Who Saw Tomorrow. And in that documentary, they share that Nostradamus predicts there would be an attack on the new world in the new city, that 2 rockets would hit 2 towers. And I'm thinking the new city, New York City, and the 2 rockets, well, they weren't rockets, but they were aircraft fully loaded with fuel. And I started doing research, and I was waiting for somebody to come about and say, "Oh, yeah, remember this whole movie of Orson Welles that was made back in the '80s and the predictions?" And nothing was ever brought out until probably a few weeks later, and somebody started saying there was something of a prediction if you followed Nostradamus. And some people started talking about it, but nobody ever referenced that first documentary that I knew of back in the early '80s. And, so ever since then, I thought, "Okay, I mean, 2 rockets, 2 towers hitting the new city, it would change the world and bring a new threat."
I mean, it sounds right. I mean,
Right,
it's
and
and
I'm
sorry.
not into this where I follow it, verbatim, but, again, Mario, as we're starting the new year and I'm looking around and thinking about what do I wanna achieve here, and we're all getting older, then something popped up that said, "Oh, by the way, there are not 10, not 20, but 9 chilling things," as you shared, Nostradamus predicted for 2022 back when he was a young man, and he had some kind of a vision of this year. So, yeah, let's go through it. As you said, present the ninth one, then we'll get up to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first.
Let's start at number 9. The 9 chilling, as Mark says, the 9 chilling things Nostradamus predicted for 2022. Number 9, a shower of asteroids will destroy the Earth. Wait, that's number 9.
Yeah, and if you look at the quatrain that Nostradamus wrote, it says in his words, "A great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will seem awesome and marvelous. Soon after, there will be an earthquake." Again, the above quatrain indicating maybe a meteor shower is about to fall on the planet. A large enough rock maybe falls into the ocean, could cause a giant tidal wave. This would engulf the land and cause great damage. And think about some of the headlines we've had recent months. We're working on, going up and destroying an asteroid that they say is not even in route or in target of hitting the Earth, but yet we want to go up with our new technology and be able to destroy asteroids, perhaps if we ever have one that's bound for Earth. Why would they be thinking about things like this? Do they know something? Are they looking at some of these predictions of one like Nostradamus, maybe others over the years that it could happen?
What was the one that asteroid that was supposed to go by Earth that was pretty significant? And if it had landed or the trajectory changed, that it would actually cause damage. Maybe that
Yeah,
was
and most of these are, when they're saying asteroids, we're not thinking of maybe like, from movies we've seen with these asteroids that are the size of maybe the state of Washington or maybe the size of a large mountain. These are like the size of maybe a semi truck or the size of a small yacht, but yet at a high speed hitting Earth, apparently they can cause some kind of damage and change our weather pattern somehow or penetrate the Earth enough to maybe cause an earthquake or in the ocean, a tidal wave, kind of like with the recent underwater volcano we had there in Tonga. Look at
yeah,
the
oh yeah.
the slight fear we had on the West Coast from California to Alaska with the tsunami advisory, which at first some people were saying it was to be a warning, which that's indicating the waves could be up to 12 feet high. Somebody knows something. You say that all the time, Mario, on this show. Somebody knows something.
Somebody does know something, and maybe the government knows something that we don't know, and for good reason they're keeping it from everyone so that there's not mass hysteria or civil unrest. And I mean, so maybe it's just like the Men in Black. You just don't. Maybe they're doing work out there to save humanity. We just don't know.
We don't know. So there's number 9, a shower of asteroids to destroy Earth. Number 8, I'll grab that. The rise of artificial intelligence. What do you think about that, Mario? You're
It's
always you're
interesting.
always looking up above.
Right. There's that Boston company. I was trying to find the name of it, where they have all these YouTube videos of all these artificial intelligence that are like able to do things that really remind me so much of Terminator 2 or any of the Terminator movies. Um, I mean, look, it could be good, it could be bad. Um, the problem is when you start having that artificial intelligence, when does it start to do its own thing and start to grow and start to try to evolve in regards to being independent without human intervention?
Mhm. And as it was described here for the rise of artificial intelligence, the eighth prediction of Nostradamus here for 2022, the technology in which many scientists are interested could be a cause for concern. For the seer, artificial intelligence would not be beneficial to humanity, but quite the opposite. In fact, according to the interpretations of Nostradamus analysts, artificial intelligence could take power, let's say, over those who employ it. And then the risks of the latter are also scientifically established.
The company's called Boston Dynamics, and they have a ton of YouTube videos that are
This is
available.
Spice moisturized with shea butter.
I was trying to find one that we could show for the listeners who may be watching this show, but we'll insert that later. But yeah, Boston Dynamics has been working diligently to create some of the most unique intelligent life out in artificial intelligence, being dogs that are helping, find people or criminals. We've seen that. We've seen artificial cops where their Boston Dynamics is also putting together almost like it looked like a tin can R2D2 police officer, but not really out to serve. It serves the community, but not in the sense of like, Mark, you're under arrest. It's like, hey, this is what it captures. It's there as an aid to assist the police. So,
all right. So there you have artificial intelligence. So watch for that this year and any stories you hear. Number 7 is called The End of the European Union. And before we look into that, Mario, did you ever know of the European Union before they hit the headlines pretty heavy here in the last year or two?
no, we're going to have to hold that thought because we are coming close to the bottom of the hour already. When we come back, we will go over number 7 again. But hold that thought, Mark. No, I had not. And I find it very intriguing that he had that. Stay tuned. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon. Okay, that's segment 1.
So you okay with everything?
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, watch how fast I've already.
Well,
from the Pacific Northwest in the shadow of the 1962 World's Fair, the Space Needle. Good evening. I am your host, Mario Magana. This is U.S. Phenomenon. If this is your first time checking us out, we thank you. See, boom. All right. Somebody's watching the stream. All right. Stand by.